And coming right up on 1010 Wins, we will speak live on 1010 Wins with somebody who was with President George W. Bush when he found out about 9/11.
We were literally pulling into the parking lot of Emma Booker Elementary School in Sarasota, Bradenton area in Florida when the first plane hit the North Tower. And the president immediately got on a phone call with Condoleezza Rice, who was National Security Advisor at the time. We went into a holding room, which is always set adjacent to an event site that the president is participating in. He, of course, by then knew that the first plane had hit. While he's in there, the children are giving a lesson about reading. We're in a holding room next door when the second plane hits, and Andy Card, who was White House chief of staff at the time, literally goes, "That's it. I need to go in there and tell the president." Of course, all the press were in the room, and when Andy Card walked in, of course, leaned over, whispered in the president's ear, "Second plane has hit the other tower. America's under attack."
At what point, Brian, was it then that you felt that America was, you say, under attack, but that we were actually at war, or did it take the next plane flying into the Pentagon to make that calculation?
Well, we were obviously on a military plane and had the military aid and others with us, and they said what we were all thinking: planes don't accidentally fly into the World Trade Center. So our sense all along was this was deliberate. Certainly, the second plane put an exclamation point on that, unfortunately.
And then after the president was told, we weren't able to see him, as I remember, because you were trying to figure out a safe place for him to go.
We finished the event in the classroom, and we had a room full of parents, faculty, and students waiting for us for the second half of what was supposed to be an event about education reform. After the president finished the classroom, we went back into the holding room with Ari Fleischer and others. He wrote out some remarks, and you may recall then President Bush went into that auditorium, which, by the way, the folks in the auditorium, most of them had no idea what was going on 1,000 miles to the north. They'd been there for an hour, so waiting, takes a while to obviously get people into an event with the president. So the president then basically told everyone what was going on with all the news cameras. And I remember, the students in particular, just the look of, they were scared immediately. Here's the president not talking about education. He's telling us there's a terrorist attack going on in New York City. So we quickly left the school. The Secret Service wanted the president out of there quick. We had no idea what else could have been there. Maybe there was a plane going to crash into the school. We didn't know. So we got back to the airport and loaded up on Air Force One. And even though it's a 747, it took off like it was an F-18 that morning. We got airborne extremely quick.
Yeah. Brian, speak a little bit, if you would, about what it was like to be a member of the Bush administration in those days right after the attack. In particular, when was the decision made that President Bush needed to go down to ground zero?
Well, I can tell you, it certainly changed the trajectory of the administration as we expected. New presidents have agendas when they go in. A lot of it are domestic issues, and we certainly had ours with education reform and other opportunities. But those events changed the trajectory of everything. And at that point, it was focused on keeping Americans safe in new ways, with the establishment of a new Department of Homeland Security later on, obviously, and certainly with the creation of TSA. Americans wanted to feel safe that they could get on a plane and not have something like that happen again. So it changed the tone and trajectory of not just our administration, but the way Americans view a lot of things after those events.
And yet in those days after, we really did unite as a nation, Brian.
We certainly did, Bridget. I can remember, by the way, on the ground zero, the president wanted to get there pretty quick. We obviously needed to give it a few days for them to still try to do some recovery and all that. But everybody knows the footage from ground zero, and the president going to the Javits Center and meeting with some families. But when we motorcaded back to the landing zone, the Wall Street landing zone over on the East River. We quietly rolled through downtown New York. It was just lined with thousands of people with candles applauding as the motorcade rolled by. It was just so moving, so moving.
Most certainly. I remember those days. I remember that feeling, everyone so proud to be American and so united in those days after 9/11. Brian Montgomery, who, as we say, was with President Bush when he found out what had happened. Brian, we thank you very much for sharing your recollections.
Thank you, Bridget.